Alright, sorry, last video was cut off by a phone call. So let's do this one. This one's a bit tricky. So for this one, any base that is raised to the power of 0, this is a special rule, is just equals 1. So whatever you put inside of this box, there's like one exception. But in general, anything you put inside this box, whether it's positive number or a negative number, it doesn't matter. It's always going to equal 1, right? And let me, I can't remember off the top of my head. I think the one exception to this rule is 0 to the power of 0. Yeah, so 0 to the power of 0 is undefined, essentially. All right, so if we're following this rule though, -4 to the power of 0 is going to be equal to 1. And again, the only exception to this is 0 to the power of 0, which would equal undefined, which IXL is simply not going to ask you that, so you really don't have to worry about this. Just keep in mind anything to the power of 0 just equals 1. So, you know what? Actually, there's a little bit of a trick here because the -4 is not in parentheses. All right? So, the power 0 is acting on 4. So it's 4 to the power of 0, which is equal to 1. But what we have here is that the negative is on the outside. So the negative gets carried down, right, in its own kind of little boxy world there. And then 4 to the power of 0 this one equals the 1, and then this negative gets carried down so that your final answer ends up being -1. So this one's actually trickier than it looks, but that would be your final answer here. So tricky. Alrighty. This one we're already used to solving things like that. So let's go ahead. So this just means since the -4 is in the parentheses here, that means this is going to times itself 2 times, right? So this means it's -4 times -4. Again, negative times negative is going to give you positive. And 4 times 4 equals 16. So the answer here is positive 16. And that's your final answer there. All right, so this is -4 to the power of 4. Again, I think I mentioned already using that shortcut. So we know that the final answer, even though we have a negative inside the parentheses here, the final answer will be positive because any exponent that is consisting of an even number, so your 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 and onward, right? So all those essentially, this will result in an even number. Now this number is going to grow a bit big. Or we can break it down, so it's going to be -4 times -4 times -4 times -4. So 4 times 4, -4 times -4 is positive 16. Okay, -4 times positive 16 would be ending up -64. And then -4 times -64. Let's see, what's that one? That is positive 256. That ends up being your final answer here. Okay, so again, another little tricky one. But remember our rule. So if we have the base here and it's raised to the power of 0, okay, so any number raised to the power of 0, doesn't matter what goes in the box, that's always going to be 1, right? We're already starting with 1, so 1 to the power of 0 will of course also be 1. But let's not forget we have that negative on the outside. I almost feel like it's trying to be tricky with this a bit. But that negative, is not part of the exponent operation. So that just ends up carrying over, right? I wonder how it would be if it was inside the parentheses. And maybe we'll find out if we get that. So, but final answer here should be -1. Okay. So this is more of the same. So I'm going to stop the video